So if you have your Bibles, turn to 1 Thessalonians. Take a minute to read that chapter. It's not very long. It'll take you probably at most 5-6 minutes to read. And when you've read 1 Thessalonians, come back and watch the rest of this video. So we're actually on our second week on our Bible study on 1 Thessalonians, and we're in our second week of chapter 1. And I want to make two observations about chapter 1. The first is this whole book is really about the hope, the faith, and the love that are generated in us as we understand that Jesus is going to return again in glory. And so this book is very much centered on the central teaching that Jesus will return in glory and the impact that that has for the way that we live, generating in us faith, hope, and love. And I want to make the observation that sometimes is turned on its head in sort of a weird way. And that is, the first generation of Christians certainly believed that Jesus might return in their life. And there was very good reason for believing that that might happen. The first one is that Paul will point out later in chapter 4 that there will be Christians alive when Jesus returns. The second thing he points out, and this language is found also in the Gospels, is that Jesus' return will happen in a way and at a time when we least expect. It'll come like a thief in the night. In other words, we will be caught unaware largely. And so the message of the gospel is to be prepared for Jesus' return, because no one knows the day or the hour of his return. So with those two facts in mind, it's very logical for Paul and other first generation Christians to believe that it is possible that Jesus could return in their lifetime. In fact, that possibility is a reality for all living Christians. He may return in our lifetime, because he will return at some point. We affirm that as a central part of our belief. And there will be Christians who are alive. And since we are currently alive, and because it may happen at any point in time, it could happen while we are still alive. And so there's nothing strange in saying that the first generation of Christians believed it might happen in their lifetime. Nor is it to their shame that it didn't happen in their lifetime. It's not sort of like a failed prophecy, or they got that idea wrong. Paul and the other first generation Christians simply believed that it might happen in their lifetime. And it could have happened in their lifetime. Just like it could happen in our lifetime, but we don't know that it will. It's interesting that people speculate all the time. Will he return now, in a year, 10 years, 1,000 years? And the simplest answer is we don't know, right? But the second thing I want to point out is that our confidence that he will return in glory, that he will complete what he has started, generates in us faith, hope, and love. Let me talk about each of those. Faith. Faith is trusting someone. And the issue of faith and trust only really come to a head, really rubber hits the pavement when we have to live with a certain amount of uncertainty. So there are so many things happening in our time and place in history. Supposedly we have UFOs hidden somewhere. Supposedly the planet's going to overheat and cook us all. We could still nuke each other. AI may take over and ruin all our jobs and become our overlords and wipe out humanity. Or it might create paradise, who knows. But we're living in so much uncertainty, and it's very easy for us to get worried and wonder, is God going to be able to still keep his promises? And faith is about trusting God's character despite what any of the external situations look like. We trust him. We trust his character. Everything else may change, but his character will not. So that's faith. Hope. Hope is not wishful thinking. When we speak of it biblically, we're not talking about wishful thinking. We're talking about a confidence about the future, a sense that the future is something good, that the destination is taking us somewhere desirable, that God's plans are being enacted, even if we can't see how it all fits together. And we have confidence that the future we're moving towards is a good future. It doesn't mean we won't go through suffering, war, famine, trials, persecution. It only means that the final ending point are none of those things. Death, sorrow, war, persecution, all of those things are not our final end. The final end is the kingdom coming in full, all of creation being restored, and Jesus returning in glory to oversee all of that. So we have hope. We're people that are filled with hope. And because we have faith and hope, we also have deep love. Our faith and hope come from knowing how much we are loved. Knowing how much we are loved, we're enabled to love others, to express that love to others. And so Paul starts his letter to the Christians at Thessalonica, or Thessalonica, however, or Thessaloniki. I've heard it pronounced about 3 different ways. But he starts it by saying, listen, this teaching about Jesus' return, it is so practical, it's so foundational. It will shape who you are and how you live, because knowing with confidence that Jesus will return in glory, knowing that he loves us and will keep his promises, we ourselves have generated in our hearts faith, hope, and love.